Should be going live pretty quick. All right, we're on.
There we go. The regular meeting of the Linden Hills Special Service District Advisory Board will now begin. Good afternoon. My name is Michael McLaughlin. I will be facilitating this meeting of the Linden Hills Special Service District Advisory Board. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. Advisory board members, when I call your name, please indicate that you are present. Jen Belfler.
Present.
Felicity Britton.
Present.
Mark Dwyer.
Present.
Peter Hinkey.
Present.
Mark Settergren.
Present.
Very good. I'll also note we're joined by Andrew Carlson and David Bauer with the City of Minneapolis, and we have a couple of guests that have joined us that we will have introduced themselves in just a minute. There being a quorum of advisory board members present, we will proceed. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and if desired, we can also in one action accept the minutes to the prior meeting, which was August 4th of the last year. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Very good. Any discussion? Very good. On the motion to adopt the agenda and accept the minutes of August 4th, 2020, I will call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I need a second. Sorry.
Second. I'll second it.
Thank you, Mark. On the roll call, Jen Belfler.
Aye.
Felicity Britton.
Aye.
Mark Dwyer.
Aye.
Peter Hinkey.
Aye.
Mark Settergren.
Aye.
Very good. The agenda and the minutes to the prior meeting are approved and distributed. We do have a public comment period. I believe our guests are here for an agenda item, so I don't believe we've been joined by anybody else. What we typically do is just postpone that public comment period till the end of the agenda, should someone from the public join us. So if there's no concern with that, we will move on to our discussion items. And the first discussion item is a proposal from the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council regarding the pocket park and a planting plan. And before we begin, we do have a board member who would like to make a disclosure.
In the interest of full disclosure, I hold a seat on the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council. I have no financial interest in the thing being proposed, and I'm pretty familiar with it. So I will try to keep my mouth shut and let Becky and Connie do what they came here to do.
Very good. Well, with that, I will note that we did include the proposal items as they were submitted from the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council, and we have been working for at least 6 to 8 weeks now, primarily with Becky Allen, the executive director. And I know, Connie, you have been sort of on the other side of those conversations along with others. So with that, we thought what we would do is and it's 12:12 here. Our goal, just to make sure we get through this, our entire agenda, is to, if we could limit this whole agenda item to about 20 minutes. We want to make sure everybody's questions get answered, but that's our goal. What we thought is we would have Becky and Constance introduce themselves and do a quick overview, and then we can kind of jump into Q&A, and then we've also, the SSD team has had a chance to look this over and have some thoughts as well. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Becky Allen and Constance to walk us through the proposal.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. I know many of these faces. So I'm going to be really brief so that Connie can provide you with a more in-depth overview, because this really was a project that was born out of her work, hard work, and another of our environmental committee members named Ann Feit.
Becky, I think Ann is on the call. Can we confirm that?
I think Mike said there wasn't anyone. I had sent her the dial-in information. Did she?
Oh, okay. I don't. Okay, I just wanted to check because I hadn't.
Hopefully she. I mean, I hope she can hear. So just quickly to give you a basic overview, a few months ago, the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council approved a project spearheaded by the Environmental Committee. It's a 3-year project we're calling it the Naturescape Project, but it's to enhance the biodiversity of Linden Hills. And Connie can go into more detail about the whys and hows of that. But we wanted to fund this project for the trolley path, and the idea was brought up to also include the pocket park. That's the part that we're here to talk to you about today. I just want you to know that it's a large in scope project. It extends through the neighborhood, and this is one piece of it. So Connie, if you'd like to go kind of a brief overview of the scope of the project would be great for this in this particular
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, some of you may know that we have been working, volunteers have been working for many years on the trolley path, what we call the trolley path Naturescape. And so we're really excited about this opportunity that came out because of NRP funds. So you may or may not be familiar with the fact that 5 or 6 years ago, the city of Minneapolis passed a Pollinator Resolution. And in that resolution, they talked about being a pollinator-friendly city, and they encouraged people to plant native plants to help pollinators, and also to stop using pesticides. So we've been really heartened by the intention of the city to try to make our environment more healthy and more rich with diversity, biodiversity, because birds are declining, insects are declining. A lot of this is climate change and overuse of pesticides and basically loss of habitat. So this project is designed to really enhance biodiversity by trying to plant native plants and trees and shrubs and grasses in areas of our neighborhood where there's room, and public spaces where people can enjoy the beauty and also just enjoy the healthy environment around us. So we're real excited about trying to revitalize the pocket park, because we're seeing it's pretty much a monoculture of daylilies, which are non-native and don't really attract or help any insects. And so we've submitted a plant list and some, just the plan that we would like to implement to really, I think, bring the pocket park alive with more color and more butterflies and more people to enjoy it. And I know that you might have some questions, so I don't want to take up too much of the limited time that we have available. But basically, it's part of this, I think, really progressive idea in our community to enhance our green spaces and make them not only more beautiful for humans, but more healthy for the environment as a whole, including birds and butterflies and the bugs they need to survive. So is that sufficient as kind of a start?
Yep. So I'll note, oh, Becky, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just thanking Connie, and then I was going to open it up to questions. So go right ahead, Mike.
I would, again, draw the board's attention to the proposal items. So there were a couple sheets. One was sort of a narrative piece. Another page, the second page was a plant list where the group has gone through, and so the critical path on this is when they first reached out to us, I had sent them, as part of our conversations, the original planting plans that were provided to us by the developers, landscape architect at the time, in terms of what they represented had been, and I'm not challenging it, but that what they had indicated was the as-built condition upon completion and installation of all the plants. So then the group here, the neighborhood group, has gone through and suggested for each of the plant species, except for 2 where there would be no changes, sort of their proposed plants in lieu of those plants. And as I understand it, and Becky and Constance, please correct me, the idea is that essentially at those locations per the original plan is where you would propose these new plants be installed. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. It's kind of, the plan's kind of hard to read because it's so full and it's so small, but that's the general philosophy, is that the plants that were intended to be planted back whenever that was, most of them did not get planted. So what we'd like to do is substitute native versions or native plants that can help pollinators instead of those plants that most of them didn't get planted anyway.
So constant, it sounds like there's really no downside for us. It's like there's no extra cost to the special service district. In fact, there should be savings with less pesticides or fertilizing or whatever we do. Less irrigation maybe.
Yeah, for sure, less irrigation once the plants are established. I personally, you know, obviously I'm biased because this is part of my whole focus these days. I work over at the Roberts Bird Sanctuary too, and we're very keen on, you know, getting rid of invasive species over there and planting native plants to help the environment. It's really an important focus for me. And so I don't see any downsides. That what I see happening is that there would need to be a change in how the area is maintained, and it's a net benefit that the change would happen. A lot of the there'd be less watering once the plants were established. It'd be more work at first, you know, to get the new plants established, to plant them and then water them and make sure that they're doing okay, especially during the kind of heat wave that we're going to get in the next few days. But then ultimately, native plants are much easier to maintain. They get deeper roots and they require less water and less maintenance. We want them to fill in the spaces. And so there would be less just, I don't know if being is happening right now because there's so much mulch. I don't know if anything can even get through the mulch, but it would be less mulching and they're really more self-sustaining. So I can go into more detail later about what the maintenance would be, but generally we wouldn't want it to be winterized, so to speak, because that we want to leave the plants, the remnants of the plants over the winter for winter beauty and also as sources. The insects might be nesting in there. And then in the spring, late when the weather warms up, that would be when the garden is cleaned up. And you know, there's a whole lot of discussion happening right now about what does cleanup mean for a native garden. And there is a way to make it fresher, you know, and to get rid of some of the dead stuff. But generally later in like in May as opposed to April when some conventional landscaping happens. But I just see a lot of wonderful benefits to the community and no downside really.
Other questions regarding the proposal?
So question, the money wise then for planting all these plants, that is taken care of?
You know, somehow the quality of my Microsoft product just really went down. All the people are blurry now. And Mark, I couldn't hear too much, but were you asking who would pay for the plants?
And the planting part of it. What is our district having to pay? Anything?
Well,
or?
no, I mean, first of all, we've the plants come out of the budget for the project, for the Enhancing Biodiversity project. So the plants are already paid for. Volunteers are going to be the ones to plant them and maintain them for the first couple of years while they get established. And in fact, we wouldn't really want the regular maintenance person to come out until we've had a chance to educate whoever is going to be selected to do the maintenance going forward about the new design of the garden. One thing though that I really think is important to happen, and I don't know where these funds would come from, but in the original plan, those boulevard beds were supposed to be planted with annuals. And we want to plant those with perennials, but they were supposed to be steel edged. There was supposed to be some kind of a durable fencing that would surround those 3 boulevard gardens along 43rd Street to protect the plants from dogs and people trampling them. And that didn't happen. They're just a blank, you know, really ugly, dry, dead space. And we want to bring that alive, but we would need to discern that what the steel edge fencing would look like and who would pay for that.
How tall of an edging are you referring to?
How tall?
Yeah.
Oh, it would only have to be a few inches. I don't think we'd want it more than 12 inches at the most.
Connie, we're still talking about the pocket park?
No, this is on the boulevard, Mark.
Yeah,
Out in front of it, Mark.
On Upton Sheridan?
There's on 43rd Street, there's 3 blank spaces that were supposed to be, originally they were supposed to be edged with steel. And then they would have annuals planted in them. There they are. Thank you.
Oh, that's never been part of our consideration, has it? As a service district, the tree beds?
That's correct, Mark. Up till this point, that has not been a maintenance item the service district has assumed any responsibility for, either at this location or anywhere in the district.
Right. So it was something that the developers said they would install and didn't.
But we have no water to those areas either, correct?
We believe there is a drip line irrigation system in those free openings.
Oh, there are, okay.
So I
That is
think,
tied into the district maintained irrigation system.
so, you know, my preference would be that those areas would be planted, but we certainly wouldn't want the need for any additional discussion about those areas to hold up the bulk of the work, which would be in the pocket park itself.
Right.
It would be wonderful to beautify those boulevard gardens. It would also help the health of those trees to have some plantings that could help absorb rainwater over there. But again, I know we're really limited on time, and we are very, very keen to get your approval so we could move forward on the main plantings, and hope we don't hold that up with you deciding whether or not the SSD supports some kind of revitalization of those boulevard spaces.
Right.
So just a couple of additional thoughts here, and I've mentioned this to Becky. So some of the proposed plant locations are inside the private property boundaries. So just so the group understands that those are outside the purview of the SSD. So specifically, these planting beds here, which are part of the original plant schedule count, along with this area and see if I can scroll up. Sorry. These
Oh.
plants on the west side of the property, those are all within the private property line. So those are outside the scope of anything the board would be sort of concurring with or not. Connie, can you say a little bit more about the maintenance? Because so Andy, David, and I reviewed this when we got this, and we one of our concerns is just the level of maintenance and the coordination with the 15 districts that we have. There's, I think there's an interest in possibly making something work, but we do have concerns about the maintenance, and it caused us to wonder if there might not be another path for the neighborhood group to be able to accomplish what it wants that wouldn't necessarily require coordination with the SSD. Now, we would be looking to the SSD to provide us feedback on that, but there is an option, just so the group understands sort of the art of the possible here, is the SSD could essentially, turn back responsibility, and the neighborhood association could apply for their own encroachment permit, plant what they want, maintain what they want in the way they want it maintained. So there is another path here. And again, in reading through the proposal and the level of coordination that's being proposed, we do have concerns about our ability to commit either the current SSD vendor or a future SSD vendor and or our own time. So we wanted to just describe that there is another path forward that achieves the same outcome that the neighborhood group is proposing here, but through a different methodology. The one sort of place where we would want to still coordinate, there is an SSD maintained irrigation system in this area that feeds not only these planting beds, but the north median, the north roadway median, and that we presume the SSD would want to continue to maintain. So there would still, in this scenario, would need to be some coordination regarding the irrigation. And, again, I think we'd be looking for the advisory board if there's an interest in exploring this alternative approach. There's likely a way we could work out some of the details.
Well, I'd like to just jump in if I could and say I would be really sad to see the other path, the encroachment path, because I think this is that once the change is in place, that with basically the change is just different plants, that and once we have the right contractor in place, that the maintenance would actually be easier than it is now. So could you be more specific about what the concerns are about maintenance? Are you
Yeah, and I think part of it is we have certain procurement requirements, so we are not able to we can't just pick a vendor, for instance, Connie. So we have to be we have to take a different approach to how we can provide the maintenance. So
we have a vendor. I mean, how hard can it be for a volunteer like Connie to talk to our existing vendor? That doesn't seem like a big commitment of time.
That's just not a path forward that we're going to be able to support. That isn't how we operate in any district, and it's not something we'd be comfortable with. What we would be comfortable with, if the group wants to stay with the original proposal and continue to maintain it, if the neighborhood group wanted to provide sort of maintenance suggestions, we can certainly review them and pass along any ones that we concur with to our maintenance vendor, whether that's the current one or any future one, because we do obviously have to rebid these periodically. So
Can I
I think
jump on
that
one?
suggestion piece, we think there's a path there.
So one thing, Connie, we have not been cleaning those out in winter. We've been letting them go exactly how you've said, and we clean up in spring. So I'm just curious how much, what are we really worried about here? I understand once you get these plants going, so this first part's going to be, more work than what we're usual doing. But that's where you guys are volunteering to come help.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I
So
just want to clarify.
Down the road, what are we really worried about in maintenance?
Good question.
Because all we're doing is a spring cleanup now.
Right.
Well, that wasn't the
You're
information
doing
that I
this-
got. The information I got in answer to my question was that the gardens are so-called winterized. But can I ask, so just to clarify, so the contractor that the city currently employs to go around to these districts it does not accept any kind of guidance or requests from the city. It just does its own thing.
I don't think anybody said that, actually. Couple things. So we do, just so everybody's clear on the maintenance, there is a spring cleanup of the planting beds that the district has paid for. We then go in once a month. The contractor goes in, pulls any weeds, removes any garbage, does any therapeutic pruning, trimming, things like that of the planting beds. And this is true not only of the pocket park, but your center medians. And then I think there might have been just a little bit of lost in translation, Constance. Any plants that benefit from a winterizing and therapeutic pruning in the fall, those are the only plants that we would do that to. So in my conversation with Becky, that is part of the scope, but it doesn't mean that every plant is trimmed down in the winter automatically. It is species specific. Which is what I think Mark was trying to describe, that in a lot of cases, there aren't a lot of things we do in the fall for that winterizing. So we haven't. So I think that's what Mark was observing. So, and to be clear, the vendor, of course, in your district and every other district, we tell them what we want done, and we have a conversation with them based on their professional guidance. So I want to be clear. So it isn't that they do not take direction, because that is not the case at all. I think what I want to articulate is, in the proposal, it sounded like a very high level of an interest in a high level of coordination between the volunteers and the contractor. And it's that piece that sort of on the ground frequently that we would not be able to commit to. But what I said is, maintenance suggestions that are sent to us and that we can take a look at and review with a contractor, and those that make sense, I don't know why we wouldn't follow them. So let me be clear on that. It isn't a resistance to suggestions. There isn't a scenario where we're going to have volunteers out directing the district contractor, because it's just a bad practice for any district, because we need the contractors to answer to us, obviously, so that we can control the district's costs, if a situation arises. So
I understand that. That makes sense to me. And I just want to clarify too that the proposal did not mean to intend that there'd be this ongoing collaboration directly with the vendor at all. It was just that because there'd be a shift in the types of plants in the garden, and the vendor might not know more about those plants, to just share that information up front so that they had that information going forward. It wasn't that we were going to try to work side by side with them or anything like that. And I'm sorry if the proposal was unclear about that. Really, the proposal just talks about that when we shift away from the project period during which volunteers can help nurture the plants to get established, that for longer term maintenance, then the project leads could share information to the chosen qualified contractor.
well, that's helpful, because that isn't how we read it, to be clear, because there's a couple.
Guys, could I ask two questions pertaining? First of all, are we just then speaking about the pocket park, or are we also including the flower beds on Upton Sheridan?
Not the flower beds on Upton Sheridan.
So just the pocket park.
Yeah. And as we saw, I think there was some confusion that the boulevard, the 3 boulevard areas, I thought were considered part of the pocket park, but now I see that they might not be. So it's just the pocket park. In fact, I think on the original plan, they made a distinction between on-site and off-site. So we focused on the on-site, which is that pocket park area right at the corner. We didn't really stray into the other areas. I know there are businesses over there that, that we were really talking about the pocket park proper, if you will.
Oh, so Connie, do you prefer Constance or Connie? I don't want
Either
to.
one is fine.
Okay.
Just not Candace.
Okay. So I want to make sure. So can everybody see my cursor on my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The proposal does not include these areas?
Right. That's why if you see.
Okay, well, so the reason we assume that is in the way the proposal was submitted, and I understand why you did this for the simplicity of using that original plant schedule. Some of those plant counts include these plants.
Well, if you look at, do you want to bring up the plant list again? Because it looks like you
right
can,
down here.
well,
Or-
I know, I mean the proposed one.
Yeah.
Because the plant counts included in our proposal only included, see, on-site, planned, and actual. So those are the ones that are in the pocket park proper. And I just put the off-site planned just because I didn't want to confuse people about, well, that doesn't match up with the developer's plan. So I wanted to use the same breakout on-site and off-site. So like, for example, look at that Carl Forster grass where it says that 71 were planted.
Yep.
Those are all not part of the main pocket park.
Right. And didn't get planted.
Right. Not very many got planted.
Oh, yeah, just one, so we're all on the same page. Other people may have more information. A lot has died in these planting beds over the years.
Right.
So I think we should be careful about saying whether things were definitely planted or not, unless someone went through and documented, a couple of years ago. So just to kind of nuance that. So obviously it's recognized that not all of the original plants, if they were planted, are there now because of, plant die-off for one reason or another. So the other thing, and I realized, we were working out the original development plans. We're wondering if on-site versus off-site might mean within the property lines and outside the property lines. So where you might have interpreted
On-site is the pocket park and off-site.
No, on-site is I'm speculating here because I want to agree with Constance's observation. there is a lot of information on that plan sheet, so it does become difficult to read. So I want to acknowledge that, for anybody reading this, even a professional landscape architect, to sort of suss out what's intended here, because this on-site versus off-site is not necessarily a standard distinction in a plant schedule on a plan sheet. So I'm speculating that on-site might have meant those plants that are inside the private property line, and the off-site includes the pocket park and those sort of crescent-shaped areas along Sheridan, Upton. And I really, my sense, Constance, the intent was just to go through and say, hey, we think that these alternative plants would do better than the original plants, whether they were there or not. It's kind of how we interpreted it.
Yeah, but if you bring back the diagram, I don't think it is that way about offsite, onsite.
Okay, maybe
the diagram indicates, I mean, the diagram, when you look at the number of plants that were sketched out, and I know we don't have time to go into each individual one, but the on-site and off-site appear to be not only the pocket park, they don't include the other ones, the other areas that are not in the that are private property.
Okay. I was throwing out an idea of why it was maybe confusing. So I think where we're at is we've determined that the proposal, notwithstanding the counts in the original submitted plan schedule, is you are focused on just these beds right here.
Correct. Right. And as I said, in an ideal world, we would also bring some life to those 3 boulevard areas with some kind of steel edging or fencing.
Okay.
We hope that won't hold up the process of trying to move forward on revitalizing the main pocket park.
So, yeah. Can I ask one more question?
Please.
Connie, so your volunteers are going to be nurturing the plants so they, establish and grow and everything. So could we not have the city contractor come for 6 months or 12 months? And Michael, are we allowed to put a pause on him or her a certain amount of months while the volunteers just take responsibility for it?
I think that is something we could organize if that's the recommendation from the group. We can coordinate that. So we do have flexibility. Yes, let me make that clear. And Constance, I too thank you, Felicity, for coming back to that question as we're getting a better understanding of the proposal. What would that maintenance look like, and what does that duration look like, Constance, in your thinking, just to help us all understand?
Well, it's a 3-year project, so we hope to plant this year and mulch and figure out a watering schedule. We've heard that there was some damage done in the past to the watering system, so we'd like to coordinate with you on the irrigation, the use of the irrigation system. But volunteers then would monitor the plants and do any necessary weeding or watering with your permission with the irrigation system for the first couple of years. So the project technically goes 2021, 2022, and 2023. So we would say that we'd like to do most of the planting this year and next year. And then maybe it would be in the 3rd year, 2023, there could be a transition period back to the city's contractor with the guidance that you talked about earlier. And, with our plan about this is what the plants are. These are the ones that might need some kind of pruning in the late fall. And then we would highly recommend a later than usual cleanup in the spring, because that's a healthier plan for the plants and the animals that use them.
Gosh.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I just want to thank you, Connie. I think this is awesome. And thank Link for this idea, because as a service district, I don't know. I mean, we've done pretty well to try to maintain our plantings, we've not been planting the tree bases. We've instead relied on business owners to plant their own tree bases. So I think that's kind of a separate subject. But as we look just at the pocket park, I'm all for this idea. I think this is great, a great contribution.
Can I just add a little point to what you're saying, Mark, about those boulevard trees? I think, you know, it has been the responsibility of the business owners in front, but to keep them all kind of looking a little bit similar is important, I think, and to stray from that for those 3 sites. I mean, it's okay, but I don't want it to be that different from all the rest of them in the neighborhood.
Well, they're all different right now, Peter. Like,
Well, I know they are, but I don't know what the annuals are that are proposed.
We're not proposing any annuals. We're proposing perennials that would be beautiful in those spaces and would be a lot less cost and maintenance to maintain.
Yeah,
I
on those.
thought it said annuals on the plan. So,
Yeah,
sorry.
can we, I'm going to throw this out, and Peter, I appreciate the question. I was going to come back to this. On those tree pits specifically, I think the best path forward there is that those just continue to be outside the service district purview. And because the issue, we wouldn't be able to the SSD could not maintain just these planting beds because we're creating an inequity with all the other property owners, and why aren't their tree pits getting maintained by the SSD? So I think the equitable way to approach this is, the pocket park is within the purview of the service district, or it has been, because you guys have wanted it to be. And the tree pits at these 3 locations, and candidly anywhere else in the district, just to say what the path forward there is, the neighborhood group could work with the adjacent property owner, or anybody could, to be clear, and work with them and do sort of figure out separate solutions there that don't have to involve the SSD. The point of coordination on these, just because the irrigation system happens to be installed, the irrigation system that happens to feed these 3 tree pits is maintained by the SSD, because that's the way it was installed originally. So to me, that's the point of coordination. But I think leaving the plantings and the steel edging, you know, and all that conversation between, in this case, perhaps the neighborhood association and the adjacent property owner, specifically here and or anywhere else in the district, is really the path of least resistance forward for everybody.
I agree with that.
yeah, I agree too. Feel free to come and plant perennials in my beds, Connie.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
on the record, so.
yeah, Felicity, if you're
I wanted to add
serious,
one
you
more
know,
thing
we
to,
might have some that we could plant.
The
Oh, we had a couple-
plants that are in Pocket Park right now, we should try to rehome them or something with them if we could.
Yeah, if you're with concurrence from the board, that is what we were thinking we would do. So depending on where the conversation went.
Connie, thanks for all your time, and Ann's too. I know you guys been working on it hard, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Becky, thanks for getting in there.
Oh, well, I really owe this to Connie and her team. They've done a lot of hard work on this.
So
All right.
clarifying question for the advisory board, and we do need to move on here. So one of the things that we're going to recommend then, and how this conversation has gone, is that at district expense, we would have the irrigation, all the drip line system would be removed until everything is planted and then reinstalled. That is the safest way to protect that system, because otherwise, particularly with the volunteers, and unfortunately we saw this a couple of years ago when others were doing work in these planting beds and other beds that wasn't the district's venture. We saw a lot of damage, or at least a lot of damage coincided. So there would be, the question came up of what would the district expenses related to this be, and really the only practical way to do this is we'd have the irrigation contractor go in, not remove the irrigation system, but remove the drip line have the volunteers go in, as I'm sensing that's what the board is okay with. And then once that work is done, the drip line would be reinstalled at district expense. Is that important with people's wishes on this?
How big a number is that, Mike?
I'm speculating here. Couple $1,000 probably. And that's might be high, but
And again, exclusively the pocket park.
correct.
Okay.
Just where the volunteers would be planting, now that that's better defined in our minds. So and like the feeder systems and the valves and all that stuff would stay in place. None of that needs to, we're not redoing everything. We're just would be removing the drip line. It's just the safest way. And this conversation has come up with earlier on in our conversations. Becky asked if we had a plan drawing of the irrigation system, and the easiest way practically to deal with this is just we pull out the drip line and then put it back in.
Okay.
Odds. Okay. And then based on this discussion, we would then work with, we'll rehome the plants elsewhere outside the district. Is that the desire?
Here, line 3 for you. Glass order, Dan.
Oh, okay. That's a hardware order coming in.
Sorry.
No worries. And then we can, we'll certainly can work with the group as they finalize their plans for plantings and have a smooth transition between when the SSD services would cease in the pocket park and when the volunteer effort would commence.
Do you have a sense of the timeline to remove the drip line, since we're ready to plant basically? And I'm wondering, when that might happen if it works out this way.
I think my quick answer is I think we can discuss offline what that timing looks like. We weren't sure what the timing was of the proposal, so we can work with our irrigation contractor. I can imagine we could get that done relatively quickly. Depending on their schedule. So.
Mike, thanks to you guys for coordinating with Connie and with Link too. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I know you have to move on, and I really appreciate the time and hopefully the support.
We do very much, and Link's excited to be working with the SSD. We're excited to partner with you guys and have some FaceTime together. It's always nice to see the faces and hear the conversations about what's happening in our community, and keep the lines of communication open. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Can we just Connie, one thing we will want to clarify is that volunteer, how long that's going to happen. So once we turn off in the pocket park, I think we're going to need a little bit better clarity on what that timeline looks like. If it's, unless you is it 3 years and we'll just come back in 3 years? Is that what you're thinking real quick? Just so all the board members that we're all on the same page?
Well, where I thought we were going with this was that first if they have to remove the drip line because we can't work around it, to remove the drip line. And then we plant, and then they put the drip line back in. And then, yes, throughout 2021 and 2022, we wouldn't need their maintenance because we, at that point, would be trying to establish the plants. And then, as I said earlier, in 2023, there could be the transition where we provide guidance to the contractor about the changed planting scheme in the pocket park and how they would maintain it.
Okay, so 2 years break.
Yeah.
Which would pay for the removal of the drip line and reinstallation.
Okay. And we'll still, the group will still have the maintenance of those, the Sheridan Upton areas as well.
Right.
Can I ask you a question, Michael? Where is the control for the drip line?
There are a couple of handholds. There are several handholds in the pocket park in the ground there. So that's where the meter and the RPZ, and then there are multiple satellite valve stations in those beds. If you walk, some of them are obvious. You can see them, they're above grade. Some are not above grade, so you can't see them if you walk. All right. I think, is everybody ready to move on? I think we don't need a formal action item on this based on the consensus of the group. Anybody have any final comments on this? We'll move on in the remaining 35 minutes.
So we don't have to move approval of partnering and doing all that?
The group can, I think, why don't we do this? Just because there was some confusion, why don't we work with the neighborhood group on sort of a final consensus on how this is all going to work and put this in a document, including specifically the areas that we're talking about, and we can bring that forward to the next meeting. I think that's a better way to memorialize this, since I wouldn't recommend we adopt the proposal as submitted, because it speaks to areas beyond the scope of what we are eventually here talking about, have eventually.
But we're not going to delay it for another quarter.
No, just the final sign off. No, we can move forward based on the consensus from the group here. We're comfortable moving forward on what's discussed. What I'm merely suggesting is at a later date, we would finalize and memorialize. We'll memorialize it now. It would just be come back to the board at another date to be determined.
Right. But at this point, we're all in agreement that the environmental group can replace the plants at the pocket park and maintain it for the next 2 years.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
That's how I'm understanding.
Yay.
So moved.
Okay.
For sure.
Thanks, everyone.
Let's move on.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Connie. Thanks,
Thank
Becky.
you.
Thank you.
I don't know how to leave the meeting. Oh, I can hang up.
It should be hang up.
No.
Right.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks,
you all. Have a good rest
Thank
of your
you.
meeting.
Bye, Becky. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, next on the agenda item is very quickly is the 2020 annual report. Don't need to go into a lot of detail here, other than we'll draw out that we summarized the work that the group did, and that from your trash receptacles, I'll note that we did remove over 4,100 cubic feet of trash last year from your trash receptacles from your forest. So, and then the other things, the turf mowing and the other maintenance that was done here, the street pole decorations are all noted here. I'm just doing this quickly in the interest of time, but please stop me if you have questions. Excuse me. The year-end financial report, the district, the amended budget was 22,279. The final year expenditure was 14,143, resulting in a surplus, a year-end surplus of $8,136. As has been the past practice, those dollars have been approved to be carried forward and are available in your 2021 budget. So those dollars just carried forward. Again, going over this quickly, there's the service map. Any questions on the annual report? This is not an action item. We just wanted to bring your attention to it. All right, on. Here is your 2021 work plan. I don't know if I can. You see that adjustment reflected again, that year-end surplus from last year. In terms of a placeholder, we put it in line item number 2, the landscape maintenance repair. So your amended budget for this year is $28,536. Separate from everything we have just discussed, obviously we will have some irrigation expenses related to that, in addition just to the normal maintenance. The last year, regarding the sort of the Sheridan Upton beds, we had discussed last year about the idea of refurbishing those and perhaps replacing the turf area. David was out very recently and things look pretty good. Does the group still want to pursue that project for this year? Is one question. And are there any other projects for this year? We do have a suggestion by a board member that we'll address in just a moment to perhaps modify the service levels for the trash receptacles. Separate from those two items, specifically on the landscaping, Do you guys want to go with status quo for these non-pocket park areas, or do you want to do something?
I think we're fine, right, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Status quo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Status quo.
All right, very good. And are there, separate from landscaping, you know, we'll kind of refresh the light pole lighting and put up the seasonal decor, meaning the snowflakes in November. No reason to do anything different, but I just want to pause and ask the question.
Was that the painting of the light poles?
No, this would be the restringing of any the LED stringers that are on the light poles. I mean, they're up year round, but we typically go in the fall and replace any where if we've got any outages, and then in November we would install the snowflakes. Is there anything the group wants to do differently, I guess is the question.
I think that's all good too.
Okay. Very good. And then service frequencies on the trash receptacles. We had done an orientation with both Felicity and Jen a couple of weeks ago, and Jen had brought up the question of whether the frequency could be modified on those trash receptacles, and they can be. And I will just note, just so everyone has an understanding. So the current frequency is January through the end of March. We empty all 4 receptacles twice a week. And then April through October, we do them 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then in November and December, we drop back down to 2 times a week. So, and Jen, I don't know if you wanted to speak to your suggestion.
Did you say in summer there's less frequent pickup?
No, it's 2 in the
3
winter,
times.
twice a week in the winter, 3 times a week in the summer. If I didn't say that, I misspoke. I
I
apologize.
think you said 4 for. Oh
think
no, you might have said 4.
Jen,
Yeah.
are you having trouble with them they're too full?
You know, there's not
Yeah.
actually, did I mute myself accidentally? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. There's not actually a trash receptacle right in front of New Guild. It's more the ones that are down in front of Sebastian Joe's and Latina and the Clancy's, that zone. They are sometimes during the nicer months of the summer, especially after a Saturday, they are just so overfilled and overflowing, and it's frustrating. It's also frustrating to see people shoving cans and bottles that could have been recycled into those receptacles. And I know that's a separate topic, and I'm not sure what, if anything, we can do to address it. But I was asking, just because I've seen that overflowing, I was asking about the schedule and whether or not it was adequate. It occurred to me that given that last year was like a slow year for all of us, I never saw any overflowing trash receptacles last year. Maybe I was wondering if this year, if I keep an eye on it and if I see it overflowing at any time, maybe I can take a picture and let Andrew and David know. Maybe we don't need to modify it yet, but if we consistently see during the summer that those ones specifically near the Sebastian Joe's are overflowing on a regular basis, that maybe we could up the frequency for the most popular months of summer. That's it.
It sounds like the frequency would be like this, like you said, Saturday night into Sunday, but if they're just doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, doing it more times during the week is probably not going to help. But, you know, do they do that on a Saturday or Sunday?
Yep. We have districts that have 7 days a week service.
Okay.
So I've got a question on that, Michael. For the one across from me at Dunn Brothers empties it.
Yeah, my sense is part of how this has been managed is property businesses have just gone out and supplemented what the district is doing. That's just my sense. And that's often the case in a lot of districts. So one way to think about it is the SSD providing a base level service, and if individual businesses want to do it more often, that's fine. We also do, the board could increase the frequency if desired.
Right. Maybe
So,
we just change the day. So it could be instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Something
Yeah.
like
You know,
that.
that's a great idea
That's
because the whole
brilliant.
village is closed on Monday.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then
In
just-
response to the person who's, I'm sorry if I'm talking, am I talking over someone? I can't tell.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's nice that Dunn Brothers is doing that on their own. I actually wish in my hood of hoods that each business that inadvertently is generating a lot of trash, you know, nobody leaves New Guild and takes their jewelry out of the box in the bag and throws it in a trash dispenser, you know? I wish that the businesses that are generating the trash and frankly, the recycling by selling cans and bottles would take responsibility for it. And I don't, because I'm new to this group, I don't know, do you have the power as a group to ask business owners who aren't on our SSD board here if they're willing and able to do that?
So before we get to Jen's question, I want to make sure we get back to it. We did have someone join us. I'm not seeing a name. If they want to just quickly introduce themselves, that would be very much appreciated.
Yes, my name is Ann Fight. I'm Connie and I are working on a grant for the Trolley Path Naturescape and the Pocket Park.
Yes, welcome. We have concluded that portion of the agenda. So I believe Connie.
Oh, I thought they started at 1.
No, it started at noon. Started at 12. So we had a real.
All right, I blew that. Okay,
Connie
well,
did a
I'm-
bang up job of it. Connie did a
she
bang up
great
job of it.
So we had a real good discussion. You're obviously welcome to stay. This is a public meeting, but I'm sure they would
no,
be able to fill you in
I
on
thought
the
it
details.
was I'm sorry, I thought it was at 1 o'clock. So I'll just I'll just leave. Yeah,
And this is Mark Settergren.
yeah, I heard you, Mark. How you doing?
Everything- Great. Everything went as you wanted it to go. Just so you know, we took care of all that, so it's all set, ready to run. Just so you know.
Okay, thanks, Mark. All right, well, I'm just
All right.
going to hang up.
Okay. Bye, Ann.
Thank you,
All right,
Ann.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay. Sorry about that. To Jen's question with regards to trash, I mean, yes, there's always the desire that businesses take a proactive role, not only with emptying trash receptacles in front of their business, but also just maintaining the public space around there. That is a conversation. It's definitely a service that can be expanded upon and addressed through the service district as well. So it's totally appropriate to have that conversation here in this space. But I mean, in terms of reaching out to those individual businesses, I mean, they are paying into the district, they are paying the service charge, so we need to be mindful of that aspect as well.
And I would just add to that, Jen, I think while there isn't a role for the SSD advisory board per se in that discussion, obviously you are individual business owners and stakeholders in the community. You can approach them on your own behalf and try to have that conversation with them if desired. Mark?
Okay.
Yeah, question. So Jen, I'll talk to Sebastian Joes when I see him. They're in here all the time, and I know he would help out. I have a question though. How do I get another trash out in front of my little park that I have? Can we do that?
Good question.
We can, and Jen, this is going back to a question you asked. The service district could purchase and deploy additional trash receptacles that match what you have. You also have the ability, and we have several districts do this, that have done this, that have purchased single sort public recycling receptacles that can be co-located with trash receptacles, and that material can be recycled and is recycled. So there are two pieces there, both of which could be SSD funded if desired.
And if we have the recycle, oh, go ahead.
We asked this question during our orientation. It wouldn't be a separate service to pick up the recycling. It's the same truck, right?
Correct.
So you don't have to pay for a second team to come. There may be a second fee, but would there be a second fee? Because it's still the same volume of material. It's just in a different section.
Yeah, so the way the contract is structured, it's a per servicing per receptacle fee. So there would be a fee to pull the bag out. That's the way the contract is structured. But it would be done at the same time by the same crews, and the material, we actually use different colored bags to differentiate between trash and recycling, and the material is recycled with a Metro eventually it goes back to the shop and then it is recycled by a recycling company. And I say that only because a lot of people ask if the material is actually recycled, and it is.
Right.
Mark, maybe if we had a recycling container that people put their cans and bottles in, maybe that would reduce the demand on the other trash containers. Does that sound sensible, or you really want another trash container?
I would love one down on my end. Just
And you
because I
have to co-locate them, you guys. You can't just have recycling in front of Mark, because people will not cross the road from Dunn Brothers and put their recycling in front of Mark's, and Mark's will get full of trash. It has to be both.
Yeah, that is, just to build on that, we only co-locate recycling with trash. We never put a recycling by itself, but you can certainly have a trash by itself, just to state the obvious.
Well, I support putting another trash bin in front of Mark's. I think
Me
that's
too.
I guess
So
I'd like
so
to know.
down by the little park that I have, I call it the Jaeger Park, where my benches and tables are.
Yeah.
I would like to get a trash container over there.
I would like to see that too, Mark.
Okay.
Well, so Michael, do you know the cost of a trash and recycling? Because I think if we install any new ones, they should have recycling.
So yeah, this is a high estimate, but ordered, shipped, and installed, they're $1,200 to $1,500 per receptacle. That's a little bit of a high number. We might be able to get the cost down. Sometimes if we're deploying in multiple districts, we can get some of those costs down, so it isn't exactly that. The receptacle itself is like $900, but when you add in shipping and installation, that's where the cost goes up a little bit. But
And is that a dual receptacle, or that's just for a single? That's
it's
the
a single-
$1,200 cost is for a single.
Great question. It is for capacity reasons. We have found the best success with having two identical receptacles, at least in size and shape, but the color is different. So in your case, the trash is black and the recycling one would be recycle blue, but they would otherwise be the same fixture, but two next to each other. That's
So
what
that
we
would be $2,400.
correct.
So even for businesses that don't generate trash, I know that it affects all of us in the appearance of the village. And that sounds like even though that's a supposedly high number, if that's what it costs, that's what it costs. And I would support it.
Right. I talked to some people from Hennepin County to see if they would underwrite the recycling one, and it sounds like they don't do it in public spaces. They're more like working with individual businesses, so that was not helpful.
Thank you for trying, Connie. That was smart and nice of you. Thank you.
The county has in the past had a grant program that some districts have taken advantage of, but they do tweak that program occasionally. So I think that's maybe the latest update.
Yeah, they used to have a great one. Like if you were a gas station or something, it was called like Recycling on the Go or something like that, and they would give it to everybody. But currently, nothing.
Guys, I'm in favor of the trash request, and I'd like to review the recycling request or discuss it further before we vote on it.
Okay.
How many are there? How many receptacles would be?
Yeah, that's my question.
You have 4 district maintained trash receptacles currently.
So we're talking about adding an additional 1 trash and 1 recycling.
Yeah, but we're talking about recycling service too.
Right.
I guess I'd just like to know more before we dive. And I'd like to know how successful it's been in other districts. Who else is using it? I might like to talk to one of those districts before we do it. I just want to be a little bit more informed before I support adding recycling.
All right. So we'd like to add 1 trash receptacle down at my end. We have to vote on this, Michael, or we just tell you to go for it?
It sounds like we have consensus, so we do not need an action item on this specifically. So.
And we will look further into the recycling ones.
And
you'd want to install them both at once, right, to save on cost. You don't want to.
Well, yes, there would be some cost savings, but you could come back and add recycling after the fact once the board has had a little bit more opportunity to review it, if that's a consensus of the board. I would say, Mark, just real quick, we had pretty good success in other districts, not to convince the group one way or another, but just to provide you our direct feedback.
Yeah.
We have both large districts like Uptown that have gone to recycling, as well as smaller nodes like 54th and Lindale that have gone to recycling, and it's worked pretty well. The contamination level typically is pretty low, meaning the amount of trash that's actually in the recycling. It is not sorted at the time of collection, just to be clear. Some people ask us that, oh, do you pull the trash out when you're collecting it? And we don't. We leave that to the recycling hauler to sort that material out. But I would say it has been a success enough that for those groups that have expressed interest, we have no reason to suggest that they not proceed with it, just because it's worked. We have other districts that have also have historically done their trash and have sort of tipped a toe into recycling by not co-locating every trash receptacle, but maybe a starter number, if you will, and that has also worked for them. But again, we only co-locate them for the reasons described.
So, can I ask a question? Are the receptacles actually like two separate ones, or is
Yep.
it? So, if
it
we
is.
decided to add the recycling, it would just be $1,200 per site, which would be 5 with Mark's new one.
Well, you know what you would probably do, Peter, is just put the recycling ones out the front of Dunn Brothers and Sebastian Joe's, because like Mark's not generating bottles and cans a lot. It's the restaurant type places that are generating the takeout places like Dunn Brothers and Clancy's and Sebastian Joe's, right?
Well, and Mark sells pop in bottles, and I don't know how popular that is, but it would 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah, it's hard.
I don't see a problem with just getting recycling all the way around, and I think we're headed in that direction at some point anyway.
What's the cost of service?
It's essentially the same as trash, which I can, if you give me a second, I'll tell you per the contract actually. It is a little over $4 per receptacle for trash and a little over $5 for recycling in your district. In the contract, I should be clear, we are going to be rebidding all the district contracts heading into next year. So what I just described was your current pricing. Mm-hmm. So from an ongoing cost, after you have the capital outlay, you would effectively double it. Plus, if you add one, you're increasing it by 25%.
So we're adding 6,000 in new bins, 5 times new containers, 5 times 1,200, and then we're adding roughly $3,000 a year in service.
It'd be 6 containers. If you add 1 trash and then co-located recycling, it would be 5 receptacle and 1 new trash. So 6 times 1,200, just so everybody's on the same math. And that's a rough estimate, obviously.
Do those containers last indefinitely?
Well, indefinitely is a long time. I can tell you, we have had the reason we spec this container and why they're more expensive than something you can buy sort of off the shelf is we've had very good luck with the reliability of this receptacle, both the paint finish itself and the fixture itself. It'll stand up to a lot, and it's a reason it's really our default spec in districts going forward. So, and we can certainly point to examples where others have spec trash receptacles that have not held up even 2 or 3 years, and that's a disaster. But we have receptacles that have been out going on 10 years, and they still look good. And as part of your spring cleanup, typically what we would do is, although you guys don't, typically in most districts, but you guys don't do a district-wide spring cleanup, but typically we would pressure wash all your trash receptacles to get all the winter grime and salt off of them. So that might be something to think about in the future, but it doesn't have to be part of a spring cleanup. You could do pressure washing separately, but that's one way to improve the longevity of the paint finish on them.
Do you have a picture of them? Do you have a picture?
Yeah.
I'd like to see a picture too.
You bet. So David is usually faster than I am at this, and David, do we have any from from 54th and
Yeah,
Linden?
that's what I was
If
gonna
not,
look
we can jump on a Google Street View real quick and show you what they look like. So, and then I just want to note time. We have 11 minutes before we're set to adjourn, and we do still want to get through the 2022 budget recommendation. So, not to cut
Better
this short.
cruise.
I apologize.
Yeah. So why don't we do this? If there aren't any other discussions, we'll give David a minute or two to pull up that photo. I'll see if I can pull one up fast enough as well. I feel like, David, we might even have one in that district's annual report.
Yeah, I think that you could find it there too. I was just seeing if I could go through my photo files and find something.
So Mark, it's like just under $8,000 to do what we're talking about, approximately between 7 and 8.
Maybe we could start with just the 2 recyclings other than your trash, Mark, and then, in a future year, add 2 recycling per year or something.
Yeah, this is just Google Street View, but that's kind of what they would look like.
I think
Excellent.
that's awesome.
Yeah, they look
I
good.
think it's an upgrade from what we've got right now.
Yeah, in kind of the deal with the way they're designed is they're tough to graffiti. People aren't really going to tag them with the rods there, so it's something that deters people from doing graffiti, and they're easy to clean off. So, not that there's a lot of graffiti down in Linden Hills, but if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll note, and you can kind of see them in this image, they're a little obscured. We put vinyl graphics on the lids to with little images of what to recycle, what's recyclable and what's not. So there's an added public communication piece to help try to limit the amount of trash contamination in the recycling receptacles.
I really like those, Mike.
Lovely.
How many you want to buy, Peter?
Yeah, I do. That would be my vote.
Oh,
All right. So
was
consensus
that?
is,
what happened there?
I was in a movie theater, I think.
yeah, David did amphitheater seating for all of us.
Thanks.
At a minimum, can we agree to get another trash receptacle in front of Sutherland Hardwood?
We could. Do you
Yeah,
Mark with solid waste? You just get one of their aggregate ones out there that would match what's still there, and then we would have custom service it. Or what do you think, Michael?
No, I'm hearing you want one that matches your existing trash receptacles, correct?
For now, in the interim.
I think Mark, if you're okay with it, I think let's just order one and get it installed and get you one rather than go through the expense and stuff and the hassle of the aggregate one. And that's my suggestion, unless you really feel like you want one now. But if you can give us a little bit of time to get it ordered. I should also mention that we are able to purchase these through a state contract, so we're able to get a further discount that helps lower that cost. So just to let you know that we aren't necessarily, we don't have to pay sort of full freight on these in terms of the retail price. So I heard that there's consensus on purchasing an additional black trash receptacle to match your existing ones. What is the consensus? You've seen a photo now on recycling and how many, if any?
Mark, what do you think?
I'm fine with it, guys, if that's what we want. I really like it better when we have things like this on the agenda, and instead of bringing them to the meeting and voting on the spot.
Yeah.
I just like when, as a service district, we take a little more time. Maybe it's something I'd run by the Sebastian Joe's guys too, Mark, before we put another bin out in front, just to make sure we have consensus among some of the other businesses.
I like it.
Well, maybe if you want to leave it till next meeting.
Mark, are you okay with one in front of mine now, though?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I even want to try some of the recycling. I like it better when we know what's coming, and then we have time to consider it before we vote on it. And that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so consensus, we are willing to put one out in front of my place.
One trash.
one
Okay,
trash. And then
Yeah.
can we, at the next meeting, can we have an agenda item to look at adding 2 recycling?
perfect.
Yeah, maybe 3, Phyllis.
Yeah,
Okay, so is that consensus?
yeah,
Jen, Felicity, Mark, Peter. Okay, very good. We'll take that. So we are unlikely to meet again this year. So we're probably talking about next spring for the purchase of those recycling. But that also provides a timing opportunity, potentially another potential source of funds, non-SSD, would be this CPED's Great Streets Business District Support Grant Program. They have when districts have applied, been willing to fund in the past trash and recycling receptacles. So that would not be a service district application. That would need to be the business association or the neighborhood association or some other nonprofit in the community applying on the district's behalf. But what you can do is in that proposal, what makes it more compelling is the district's commitment to service them at district expense if and when the grant is provided and the fixtures installed.
Can you
So
send us a link to that grant application then? I'm happy to fill it out with the business.
I'll help you. Yeah, I'll help you.
we definitely can. What I can't tell you is where the grant cycle is right now. Things got kind of, it used to be like every February, I think the deadlines were due for that next grant cycle. COVID kind of changed that schedule a little bit. So I think they either did an additional one or they delayed last year until the summer. So it may be that there's an August deadline for it. We'll send you the link. And then you can reach out to CPED staff.
Thank you.
And we're happy to provide any cost estimate numbers if that's helpful in that proposal. And so I just throw that out there since they're, and that's again, one way to have that not be an SSD cost in terms of those capital costs.
Great.
All right.
It would be really good to do that again. I think Cordy did that once and was denied. And so I think repetition would be really important.
good.
I'll help do that again.
And then again, a group needs to sponsor it, which usually hasn't been an issue. Again, whether that's the business association or a neighborhood association or something like that.
Yeah.
You guys check that out. All right, we have 4 minutes left. Is there anything left on 2021? All right, if we can move on quickly to 2022. So this, and I'll share my screen again. I had put together a draft budget recommendation for 2022. It is a flat budget in terms of service charges from your current budget, just as a place to start. So this budget would not increase any service charges for any of the building or any of the properties from this year to next year. Again, just a draft.
Help up front.
Yeah, so I was just thinking through, since adding one trash receptacle, right now the trash receptacle cost will go up a little bit, but we should be all right within this $2,400 placeholder. Obviously, if next year the group decides to add recycling, when we look at the 2023 budget a year from now, this may be a number that needs to be adjusted upward in order to, depending on the number of receptacles that are eventually installed. Any thoughts on the draft 2022 budget?
Looks good.
Yeah, looks good.
Well, with that, if someone is willing to make a motion to adopt the 2022 budget and work plan recommendation as drafted, we could just take a quick roll call and be done with this.
So moved.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
A second.
Call it Mark. D. Is there any further discussion? On the motion to adopt the 2022 budget and work plan recommendation as drafted, I will call the roll. Jen Belfler.
Aye.
Felicity Britton.
Aye.
Mark Dwyer.
Aye.
Peter Hinke.
Aye.
Mark Settergren.
Aye.
Very good. That budget recommendation is adopted. It will follow the same schedule timeline that all of your prior budgets have been, in that in late September. The public hearing will be held. Notice will go out to all the property owners in advance, letting them know that there will be a public hearing, and it will include the draft proposed operating plan for 2022. So know that that'll all follow sort of the normal pattern. In terms of our closing here, thank you all for getting your board oaths in. So appreciate everyone doing that so quickly, and especially working through the logistics of COVID and trying to keep everybody safe and trying to get that done. If you haven't yet, please be sure to go jump on and use the link and complete your ethics training, so that it's good for 4 years. So if you haven't, if you don't recall doing it recently, no harm in going through that again. So just wanted to throw that shout out. We have no additional business to discuss. I'll pause if anybody else does. All right. Well, with that, if there's no opposition, we can adjourn at 1:29, a minute before our normal planned adjournment time. So thank you all, and know that we're always available. Text, email, call, all of them work for all of us. If you do see any issues, we will certainly be in your district. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. But with that, we probably won't meet again until next spring, and have a great summer, everyone.
Should we, just before we go, should we look at changing the dates of the trash service to the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday?
Oh, if that's a consensus, we can implement that pretty
Yeah,
quick.
let's try that.
Okay.
Yes.
I wrote that down because I didn't hear any opposition to
Yeah.
it. So we were already going to do that, quite honestly. So Felicity, thank you for clarifying that. So yes, we will do that.
Okay, great.
Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you all.